Tonight's coverage of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Welcome to the penultimate round of Season 3 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malwa Transport and live exclusively via TRTN. You join us for Round 9 from the cradle of motor racing in America. The world's second ever purpose-built racing course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Opened in 1909, it represents the first of its kind for the United States, a dedicated automobile racetrack built from the ground up. Racetracks before this point rose out of former horse racing venues as the automobile became more and more popular. They say motor racing began the moment a second car rolled out of the factory, and if you lived in America in the early 1910s, you'd have seen them race here faster and more aggressively than anywhere in the country. As 4 years after Indianapolis opened, so began one of motorsports' most coveted events, the Indianapolis 500. The opening race ran in May 30th, 1911. In this time, the track had been resurfaced with 3.2 million bricks, supplied by 5 of the largest brick makers in Indiana. The locals gave the track the nickname during this process that lingers with the track today, the Brickyard. In the modern day, only a single yard of those same bricks remain, lining the start-finish line. Indianapolis has hosted, racing of all shapes and sizes: 2 wheels, 4 wheels, open wheelers, sports cars, GT3s, prototypes, stock cars, and many, many more. In 2025, it hosts the Indianapolis 500 in the IndyCar Series. A second, smaller race, the Soncio Grand Prix, runs on the track's infield course. NASCAR operates here for the Brickyard 400 in the Cup Series and the Pennzoil 250 in the Xfinity Series. The IMSA Sports Car Championship introduced the Battle on the Bricks in 2014, reviving it for 2023 onwards. And the GT World Challenge America Series runs on this bizarre configuration you see before you today. 17 turns and 2.5 miles of FIA Grade 1, combining elements of the former Formula One United States Grand Prix layout used from 2000 to 2007, along with the IndyCar layout used today. The Trans Am Series also aims for a return to Indy by 2026. Today, it hosts the penultimate round of Sunday League Season 3, and it's our second time ever the NLRL Circus has raced here in the Sunday League. The last time being Season 1, Round 5, that had a controversial opening calamity. Ultimately, that race won by Martijn van Manen behind the wheel of a Ford Mustang. Looking at where we'll be heading after today, it's a double sprint round. The long-delayed Round 3 now becomes Round 10 as the final resting place for this brilliant championship, the Silverstone Circuit, for a double sprint round on October 5th. We're on board at the moment with Tyler Vermaak, who's recently reeling from the successes found in the sister league for this very season, that being the recent closure of the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship, wherein which the South African talent has now taken the GT3 Championship for his very own. They're securing things right here in Indianapolis last night on a very confusing note. Nonetheless, he takes home the silverware for the championship and now is one of 3 in the budding argument over who takes home Season 3 of the NLRL Sunday League. More on that in a moment. We've got about 6 minutes left to go in free practice and plenty of things to discuss. Starting us off then, the championship standings, and with Melvin Millister leading the charge with 274 points. Cas van Veltzen finds himself in second place with 244. Tyler Vermaak, of course, we saw last week take 2 wins in a row at the Red Bull Ring Sprint Round. He's third with 238 points and ahead of Christian LeBay, now fourth with 187. Byron Forrest in fifth with 160 points, only 5 points ahead of James Mason with 155 points in the championship. He's in sixth and ahead of Kevin Crane with 106 points. Joint 8th position between Axel Cassier and Felix Schwab with 86 points apiece, rounding out that top 10. Ivan Sanchez with 85 points. Stay on board here then with Tyler Vermaak, as he has become quite the centre of attention. Of course, just taken the GT3 Championship over on the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Series, and as mentioned for just a fleeting moment ago, had 2 race wins in a row last time we were on for the Sunday League at the Red Bull Ring double sprint for round 8 of the championship. He took home not only his first win and the first win of any South African driver in the Sunday League on its 3 seasons in operation now on NLRL, he took 2 back-to-back there on both rounds. A brilliant performance by the 81 last round out. He crosses the line there, a 2:08.935 on his outlap, starting one of his flying laps here before the end of free practice. Looking further around the field, we can see Bruno Carr, who had quite the mare out in Red Bull Ring last weekend. We can see Andrew Veldkamp currently out on track, but I want to catch on board as we just scroll past one of our new drivers for today. More on them in a moment. I want to catch on board with the man currently leading the championship charge, and that being nobody else but Melvin Milliston. Brand new livery for the 68 heading into Indianapolis as we head onto the final rounds of the championship. Bringing up the discussion of that championship fight, then Milliston with 274 points, Cas van Veltzen 244, and Tyler Vermaak with 238. It is a 36-point gap, meaning it will go all the way down to the wire in Silverstone next Sunday to decide Season 3's championship. It is looking incredibly airtight amongst these three. They've relished in a fantastic championship across the board, back into those previous wins. And really, all three of them have taken the checkered flag first among the fray on at least one occasion. Milliston has broken that all-time record for most race wins now of any one driver. Now, he's been competing all the way since Season 1, took his first win at the Red Bull Ring in Season 1, his second win at the opening round of Season 2, and then took a whole 5 under his belt this season alone to put himself at 7 wins heading into Indianapolis. You see other places on the list there, Wesley Kuiper, who competed through all 3 seasons but never saw a championship. Jason Bush, the Season 2 champion. Tyler Vermaak, most recently joining the ranks there, not only with 1 but now with 2 wins, puts himself in 4th overall. Behind him, Cassier van Veltzen, Rosnov, Skeen, Ivanov, Van Manen, who won very long ago here at this very circuit, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Season 1 Round 5 we spoke of earlier on. Then Hayden Puttock and Louis Baptiste to bring us to the end of our all-time race winners. And so, before the end of free practice, let's get a gander at the regulations and the teams championships coming into today's event. Looking at the regulations, we're back onto the standard format for the last time here. 10 minutes of free practice, into qualifying for 20 minutes, and then a race for 60. 1 mandatory pit stop with a minimum fueling time of 25 seconds. New drivers for today, and quite the plethora of some. The 999 we saw for just a moment there, Thiago Moreira with Aston Martin. Timo de Tosto now joins the Sunday League for the penultimate round of the championship. We've seen him over the course of the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship. We've also seen his exploits on other leagues, over on the Competizione Performance League, and I believe as well over on HCCL. So fantastic to see him make his debut to the Sunday League here in Indy after what a good performance he has shown over the course of his career and on screen here on TRTN. Carl Martel, another season regular over on Competizione Performance League, now joins the NLRL Sunday League in the number 99, and Carl David Bourdreau rounds out our 4-driver lineup for brand new signings for round 9. He'll be competing with Ferrari in the 996. Looking at the team's championship then, Malwa lead that charge ahead of K1 Esports, but with a double sprint round around the corner, it is still yet to be decided who emerges as the team's championship. The gap has massively closed up between K1 Esports and the leading Malwa racing team over the course of the last 2 to 3 rounds. Red Bull Ring being a serious splinter point for their lead of the championship. Holkiano stay in 3rd, Keck Sim Racing up to 4th now ahead of MSA Racing, and a joint 6th between Bulgarian Racing Team and U Amateurs. 1 new team then, QC Racing from Carl David Bourdreau for round 9 of the championship. And so we are but only a few minutes away from the start of qualifying. 20 minutes late ahead of us here. Here's one of the new drivers, Thiago Moreira, in the 999 Aston Martin V8 Vantage. And that is a fantastic livery we're seeing there. The Aston Martin racing colours sporting the 999. We can see Carl David Bourdreau, one of our other new drivers for today. Right alongside him is Tyler Vermaak in the 81, currently fastest in free practice. Looking at balance of performance for today, Aston Martin once again 40 kilos off of the V12 Vantage, Bentley losing 10 kilos, Porsche losing 4, McLaren losing only 2. BMW will gain 2, Mercedes will gain 5, Ford will gain 11, and Ferrari really on the short end of the stick for today's round, gaining 15 kilos coming into round 9 of the championship. So for Carl David Bourdreau, it's going to be a bit of a lumpy entry to the championship. He's going to be dealing with a lot of excess weight on that 296. Hopefully he can make his way into a top 10 finish for his debut. Looking around the field here, we can see a brand new livery, an all-American flair here for the number 420 of Cas van Veltzen on his way down towards the line. We're seeing that growing theme really out of Van Veltzen. He's been sporting quite a few different liveries as well. If one other driver comes to mind over who's done this on a few occasions, it does bring to mind Anthony Valorio over on HCCL has a habit of doing this as well. And just like Van Veltzen, both of them really bringing some flair to the table here. That's one of the real life liveries. Sadly, just fades my mind as to who precisely that car belongs to, which team exactly, but that is really quite a mighty set of colours there we're seeing on the number 420. The red, white and blue then representing the chapter here in the United States for the final 60-minute race of the championship. Behind him, Felix Schwab with a brand new car as well. We saw Felix Schwab compete with Mercedes and BMW. Now the number 98 joins Ford here in the United States on their home soil. Of course, it was Ford who last won here in Indianapolis in the Sunday League, Martijn van Manen. So a lot of expectations for Ford to continue to perform to standard heading all the way in to Season 3. I do have some fun announcements here just before the end of free practice, as the Season 4 calendar is currently going to be decided on stream. We'll touch more on that next Sunday after the season closure at Silverstone. So that's going to be great fun. Me and a few of the race control members have been thinking long and hard over how can we get the envelope out on how Season 4 gets laid out. And we may have come up with a little idea, and that should be quite a lot of fun. You can see the same story for Leon Schumacher. He's with Ford as well. So the Keck Sim Racing team taking a brand new car. Seeing the paddock as well, James Mason. So down towards the line goes the number 420 and the number 98 to bring us to the end of free practice. So on to qualifying, and with a stacked out 19 car grid, 20 minutes against the clock here, and already a very lively paddock. So we can see drivers already rolling out side by side there between Bruno Carr and James Mason. We see movement there from the number 81 of Tyler Vermack all the way up the road, though, leading that charge onto qualifying today. If we can catch on board with him, is the 119 of Christian Lebay. And just right in front of him, so he's actually shadowed behind the Aston Martin, is the number 68 of Melvin Milliston, who'll be leading that charge by a very thin margin ahead of Christian Lebay, then Mason, then Carr. So down to the line and onto the track we go then for Melvin Milliston, the potential Season 3 champion to be, but he's got this round and 2 more races coming up next Sunday at Silverstone to decide the fate of Season 3. Qualifying predictions for today, only 8 cars on data, and that is definitely going to make for quite an open-ended qualifying today with 19 cars in attendance. That leaves 11 cars without a time on the chart, so that's 11 potential rises up to the top 8 positions shown on the data right now. Tyler Vermack predicted fastest at a 1:35.325 ahead of Melvin Milliston. That is a 600th of a second difference between the front row, so incredibly close stuff to be expected in the next 18.5 minutes of qualifying to follow. Timo de Tosto predicted third on debut, so it's looking already very strong for the American talent. We've seen his proficiency in GT4. We've seen a little inkling as to what he can do in GT3. Now is his real opportunity to spread his wings and fly here in the Sunday League at the very penultimate round of the championship. Kyle Jenkins predicted fourth ahead of Christian Lebay, with a 1:36.577 to a 1:36.695. Ben Cheeseman predicted 6th, Bruno Carr predicted 7th, and Sergio Belda predicted 8th. So, as mentioned, only 8 times on that chart, and you can see quite the divide heading towards the back of the times on that Simbot data sheet. And that does leave things very, very open-ended, and I am predicting already from where I'm sitting that this is going to be an incredibly close qualifying coming up. So we'll stay on board with Melvin Milliston as we go for a very bizarre tour of this mixed bag, as it were, of a circuit here in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, this opening section is almost a direct rip from the 2000 to 2007 United States Grand Prix. It was in the prime of the V10 into the start of the V8 era for Formula One. Ultimately, this was one of the circuits that brought about the instance of Tiregate, which is why we now only have a single tyre monopoly in Formula One. It was one of the major defining events of that. On his way down through turn 5 into turn 6 and 7. Now, this is one of the more jarring sections of the track. Not a lot of people seem to be gelling with this super well. Anyone else who's been on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway can tell you that very rare is it that we take that hairpin left. It's usually a chicane to the left to bring us up onto this back straight. Heading down towards turn 8. So I'm told 17 corners in this configuration, used primarily by the GT World Challenge America Series, also used by the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Now on his way out onto just a very small section of that mighty Brickyard circuit. It's just ever so slightly onto the banking as we head down towards turns 15, 16 and 17 at the end of the first of our flying laps here. So for Melvin Milliston, the current championship leader, what can he do over the course of this qualifying as time has become very thin for him over the course of the last week and a half? Down towards the line then. The first of our times, the benchmark set by the number 68, Melvin Milliston to the line. Right behind him is the 119 of Christian LeBay, 135.937. LeBay to the line, 8/10 off. Next to the line comes James Mason in the 413 BMW, rocketing down towards the line. Then from behind him there, the number 81 of Tyler Vermack on his way to the line. Vermack fastest now. Milliston down by nearly 0.2 of a second. Here comes Bruno Carr to the line, third fastest. Behind him, Byron Forrest to the line from 9th up to 5th. Behind him, you can see that is Andrew Velkamp and Cas Van Veltzen on their way to the line right now as we speak. Across the line, Van Veltzen to 5th and Velkamp to 8th. Behind them, we saw a time emerge there for the McLaren. Actually, no, it's the start of the flying laps for the McLaren behind them there. That is the 113 of Kyle Jenkins. Also just across the line a moment ago, Timo de Tosto, 4th fastest now, ahead of his teammate at the Malwar Racing team. Carl Martel just across the line there in the Bentley Continental, one of 2 in this race, the other being the 36 of Alex Albert. He's 8th fastest and ahead of Mason, as well as the 2 new times on the chart there for the back of the top 10, Ivan Sanchez and Sergio Belda, the twin Ferraris of the Hulkianos Motorsports team. Next to the line right now, number 98. We're going to try and catch on board here just before the line. Here comes Felix Schwab up to 8th fastest. Behind him, his teammate Leon Schumacher. Across the line, couldn't set a time, so it could have been an outlap, could have been invalidated. Next to the line comes the 36, the other of the 2 Bentleys we spoke of a moment ago, Alex Albert, across the line, and he's 13th fastest on his first flying lap. Just over 5 minutes into qualifying then, already a great start to things. The 68 next to the line. What is the rebuttal by Melvin Milliston? Across the brickyard he goes, and 3/10 up. Here comes Christian LeBay from behind, 4th fastest now, up and ahead of Timo de Tosto. Back to the line comes the 413 of James Mason from 10th place on the field. Then Vermack, can he retake pole off of Milliston? Not this time around. Behind him comes Bruno Carr, is starting to reel the gap in. Byron Forrest on his way to the line then, looking to clash for positions with Cas Van Veltzen. Needs to find a little more time than what he's got right now. Looking at that gap, you're talking in and around 0.07 of a second. To the line next comes the 616 of Andrew Velkamp across the line, and behind him was Kyle Jenkins up to 13th fastest. Then to the line comes Ivan Sanchez, 11th fastest. Cas Van Veltzen behind him for 6th fastest, and Timo de Tosto across the line couldn't recuperate on 4th place, couldn't get that back off of Christian LeBay. They're about 0.06 of a second from one another. Across the line just a moment ago went the 99, Carl Martel back into the top 10, 9th place and up and ahead of James Mason. And 98 next to the line. We're going to try and catch on board with Felix Schwab, his teammate, not too far away. So for the Keck Sim Racing team, it's an ambitious move to Ford, but this is their bread and butter here. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway is where Ford really does belong. We saw it back in season 1. Across the line goes Schwab, 6th fastest. Schumacher from behind him across the line. Still no time for Leon Schumacher. So real trouble for him at this time. Next to the line comes the 36 of Alex Albert. Behind him is Thiago Moreira in the 999 Aston Martin to start their flying lap. The 113 next to the line. Actually, no, that's the 114, Ben Cheeseman across the line there to start a flying lap. LeBay from behind as well. 4th place so far across the line. Does make an improvement, but not for position. Now comes the 113 of Kyle Jenkins. Actually, no, it is. It's again the 114. That is my mistake. Actually, was that the... Oh, you may have to double check that, because that was in fact the 68. I got the colours confused up there because I was so used to seeing the black and gold and just immediately associating it with the K1 Esports team. But that is a new livery, and I want to say it's like a very light pink on the 68 as well, so that is a very striking livery. Across the line just a moment ago, we've seen a whole swath of positions, among them Cas Van Veltzen. You can see George Todd making his way onto the field now as well. The 25 just up the road. It is going to be an incredibly packed start by most predictions here, coming down into turn 1. We saw how things unfolded back in season 1. We're praying that history does not repeat itself, but that turn 1 run is gonna look ugly, make no mistake of it. Next to the line comes the 98, Felix Schwab, already feeling ambitious then with Ford. We saw that push up towards 6th place, but a moment ago, Cas Van Veltzen now usurping him and pushing him down to 7th as he goes up to 4th. So let's see Felix Schwab to the line, number 98. And there, back up to 4th, as a matter of fact. That is quite the leap by him there. And he puts himself just just under 600ths of a second to a podium start. Across the line then went the 65, Leon Schumacher, to the line to start another flying lap. The 36 just went across the line, Alex Albert. Then behind was Thiago Moreira, 14th fastest for Aston Martin. We've just seen across the line was Ben Cheeseman, now up to 9th fastest. The 68 on his way to the line. Can he extend the margins? A 1:35.430 to beat. Not this time around. Here comes Tyler Vermaak, 3/10 to clear. Very nearly there. 800ths and 2,000ths from the South African away from Milliston. This is incredibly tight at that front row as predicted. The 824 next to the line comes Byron Forrest from 8th place, stays there. Behind him is James Mason from 11th place, stays there as well. Next to the line, Carl David Bourdreau in the 996. Onto the timing charts. Hopefully, no, not this time around. The 1-1. Look at that there, 113. Kyle Jenkins up to 9th and now ahead of his teammate. George Todd onto the timing charts, hopefully for the 25. Not this time around. He's got one more lap to go around before he's onto the charts again. 10 minutes left to go, and this is looking incredibly close already. So heading down towards the line next is the, looking at it here, the number 98. So we're once again, for I believe the 4th or 5th time running, back on board with Felix Schwab. Now looking at the gaps, just under 600ths to 3rd place. Can he make that on this lap? Sadly, not this time around. Here comes the 119 of Christian Lebay, the solitary V12 Vantage of this championship from 6th place, stays there. Then here comes Leon Schumacher to the line. Better late than never, as he's now onto the charts and into the top 10. 10th fastest for Leon Schumacher. Behind him there comes to the line the number 36 of Alex Albert. Then from behind there, the 114 of Ben Cheeseman goes up and ahead of Kyle Jenkins. The 824 is next to the line, so Byron Forrest now quite some distance from his fellow Porsche there. Cas van Velzen, the other Porsche in this round of the championship, is 5th fastest. Right now the gap between the pair of them looking at about 0.4 of a second. Down to the line then comes Forrest from 8th. Sadly, not enough to catch Van Velzen, but up and ahead of Timo de Tosto. Behind him went James Mason into the top 10, now interceding his teammates there at the K1 Esports team. Next to the line, from quite a ways away, the 113 of Kyle Jenkins, and then George Todd. George Todd up to 11th, Jenkins down to 12th. Mason still in 10th place. You can see how close the margins are there. That is incredibly tight towards the back of the top 10. So next on a valid flying lap right now is Christian Lebay with the Aston Martin V12 Vantage, the 119 on his way down towards turns 15, 16 and 17. You see utilising a lot more of that banking now as it's actually playing quite nicely into his hands for the run down into turns 15, now 16. And on his way to turn 17, all but one time on the charts left then, that being Carl David Bourdreau, the 996, still yet to have put a time on the charts. Lebay across the line, but no improvement of position. Will there be one for the 68 across the line? Melvin Milliston starts another flying lap. Can't extend the margins yet. Back onto another flying lap. Next to the line comes the 36, Alex Albert. Still no improvement for position. Then the 114, I believe this is here. Ben Cheeseman across the line, 9th fastest and remains there for the time being. 8 minutes left to go then in qualifying. Next to the line is the 824 of Byron Forrest. So Byron Forrest 7th fastest at the moment, 7.5 minutes left to go in today's session. Next to the line, the number 380, Bruno Carr up in 3rd place right now in that all stealth grey and black McLaren 720S. Right now, the gap to clear to Vermaak, just a little under half a second. He does find himself now dead on 6/10 away from pole position, so slowly reeling in the margins on a front row start, and still needs to make, looking at it here, about 518 thousandths of a second to be precise to get himself level with the 81 up front. It's a McLaren 1-2-3 though so far in qualifying. Next to the line comes the 68. Will it be to extend the margins over the 81? Melvin Milliston on his way to the line then, and 135.430 to beat, and across the line doesn't appear to have done so. 6 minutes left to go. The 114 next to the line. Can Ben Cheeseman get ahead of Kyle Jenkins? He's already leapfrogged over James Mason. Across the line he goes, and sadly no improvement. Just over a tenth of a second right now away from his teammate in the 113 at the back of the top 10. The 413, speaking of as well, is James Mason. He's making his way currently down towards the line here on what appears to be an invalid lap, so we can reasonably assume he's on an out lap here onto his final stint in qualifying. Across the line he goes, needs to make a little over 600ths of a second for the position ahead. Tyler Vermack to the line then, 82 thousandths of a second to clear. Couldn't find it on that last lap. Next to the line comes the 113 and the 25. So that was Kyle Jenkins and George Todd. Todd up to fourth then as he makes his way across the line, now ahead of Felix Schwab and Cas van Velzen. 6 minutes left to go. Next to the line comes the 91, Ivan Sanchez to the line. Can he get past his teammate Sergio Belden? Not this time around. Carl David Bourdreau on his way to the line to finally put a time on the charts there. 18th fastest ahead of Thiago Moreira and Andrew Veldkamp. Cas van Velzen on his way to the line then from 6th place has just been shoved down a position by George Todd. Happened earlier on as well for him, courtesy of Felix Schwab. You can see without the implications there of Milliston and Vermack in this fight on qualifying, we can see just how close the field is from the positions behind. 300ths of a second between Carr and Todd on the second row. Then looking behind, it's 55 thousandths, I should say, of a second between Todd and Schwab. And then looking at it here, a little under 2/10ths of a second between Schwab and Van Velzen. So still incredibly close to play for. Across the line a moment ago was Thiago Moreira. He remains 19th in what is now a 20-car grid. Started 19 cars, now 20. Last across the line just then was the 114 of Ben Cheeseman. Remains in 11th position. So close, yet so far away to a top 10 start right now. Much to the chagrin of the 114. Backed up by his own teammate at the K1 Esports team. Across the line a moment ago went the 413. James Mason onto another flying lap. Here comes the 81 from behind though. Tyler Vermack to the line. The gap did open up a bit there by about another 600ths of a second. So now 140 thousandths of a second between Milliston and Vermack. The gap starting to reel open in favour of the Super Sweet. The number 68 has been absolutely on form over the course of the season so far. The 81 has moved heaven and earth in the last couple of rounds to put himself close in the championship standings. It can all go down to the wire in Silverstone based off of calculations alone. But let's see how it unfolds today. 4 minutes left to go in qualifying here for round 9 of the championship. We'll get on board with the next car down to the line. The 999 of Thiago Moreira on his way out through turn 16. On his way to turn 17 as we speak. Uruguayan in the 999. The first in a long drought of appearances, I should say, for Aston Martin's V8 Vantage. We've been more familiar over the course of the season with the V12 Vantage that's been around since season 1, and that's being driven right now by Christian Lebay. He's been the only driver to do so over the course of Sunday League's 3-season-long history in NLRL. To the line then goes Timo de Tosto. Can't find the space up and ahead of Byron Forrest. They're separated by about, looking at it here, 900ths of a second. Across the line was the 114 but a moment ago. Cheeseman still not ahead of Jenkins. 65 was behind him as well, that being Leon Schumacher, who currently resides in 13th place. The 25 across the line a moment ago is George Todd, and he still finds himself 300ths away from the front of that second row, putting himself on a podium start and upsetting the balance for McLaren on what is currently a 1-2-3 qualifying performance at this time. Next to the line comes Kyle Jenkins. Past the brickyard he goes then. Remains in 10th place for the time being. The 420 of Cas van Velzen about to cross the line onto his last stint of flying laps here in qualifying. Next to the line behind him comes the 91. We'll catch on board with Ivan Sanchez. Can he get up and ahead of Carl David Bourdreau and reunite himself with his teammate Sergio Belden? Not this time around. The 380 next to the line. Bruno Carr from 3rd place crosses the line to no improvement on his personal best. 2.5 minutes left to go. Time is running out for Bruno Carr to try and get onto the front row. It seems all but decided at this time, but never say never. We could really see a real deep dig performance this late on in quali. Next to the line, Thiago Moreira, 19th on the field so far on debut. Down to the line, the Uruguayan in the Aston Martin did find an improvement, but not enough for position. The 98 Felix Schwab on his way to the line from 5th place onto another of his flying laps. I believe his last opportunity, or among his last opportunities in today's qualifying to do so. Timo de Tosto across the line, 6th fastest at this time. The 114 Ben Cheeseman on his way to the line. Can he get up and ahead of Kyle Jenkins? Doesn't appear to be this time around. The 65 just across the line before, or just after him there. That was Leon Schumacher. George Todd to the line from 4th place. Can he get up and ahead of Bruno Carr? Not this time around. This is his last opportunity here to get to the front of that second row. Never say never on that performance. The 413 next to the line. James Mason clawing for a top 10. He's in 8th at the end of that flying lap there. And with just one more lap left in the tank, could he go further than 8th there? Because you can see it is 5 thousandths of a second between himself and Cas van Velzen up in 7th place. Then you're only 128 thousandths of a second from Timo de Tosto in 6th, who is himself a little under 600ths of a second from Felix Schwab in 5th. So that chance right now is still very, very close for James Mason to get a top 5 start. We've already seen him leap past his teammates there and even up and ahead of some of the Malwar cars, that being Byron Forrest and Christian LeBay, now down to 9th and 10th. 380 just across the line, but a moment ago, Bruno Carr couldn't find an improvement that time around. And that seems to be the same story for the other car inside of that top 3, Tyler Vermaak, who still claws to find a 1/10 and 400th of a second gap on the current qualifying leader and the championship leader for that matter, Melvin Millerson. Right behind him there, following in his wake, the 420 of Cas van Velzen in that red, white and blue Porsche. Onto the back straight. The 413's into the pits. That's the end of the road for James Mason's performance in today. That was a fantastic last lap out of him to put him up into the top 10. His ambitions there realised here in Indianapolis. We watch with Melvin Millerson, the man on pole position. Tyler Vermaak up the road there, but invalidated. So peels to the left-hand side here. Millerson doesn't appear to be, when we pull up the telemetry, gunning for an improvement, and he too invalidates across the line. So he's going to have to pray that no one else can find a time necessary to upset the balance he has very carefully laid out over the course of qualifying today. We're on board with Cas van Velzen, who is up nearly 4/10ths of a second. It drops back to just under 3/10ths on his way to turn 17. Now down towards the brickyard at the end of qualifying here. This could be a position jump for Cas van Velzen. Next to the line comes the 420 from 7th place, 4th at the end of qualifying. Can he hold that though? Next to the line comes the 91. Let's pull up the charts here. 91 next to the line. That was Ivan Sanchez. So next to try and challenge that position, Timo de Tosto, currently 7th on the field, not too far away at all from Felix Schwab in the 98, on his way down towards turns 15, 16 and 17 at the end of qualifying here in Indianapolis. At the home of American racing, this has really been quite a treat here in qualifying. You're looking at it just here over, a little under, sorry, I should say, 9 cars, under 10 cars, 9 cars to be exact, within a second of that fastest time. And that appears to be the end of the line for qualifying. Timo de Tosto brings it down to the line, but he was invalidated before he got to the checkered flag at the end of quali. Melvin Millerson on pole position. Tyler Vermaak in 2nd. Bruno Carr in 3rd. More on the entire grid coming up in a moment's time. What an end to qualifying we have just seen here in the Sunday League. So, the grid for round 9, and with about 2.5 minutes before the start of the formation lap, it is an incredibly packed outfield here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Melvin Millerson on pole position. Alongside him, his fierce rival on the track, Tyler Vermaak in the number 81, recently crowned champion in GT3 on the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship, now guns for the position, currently looking to fall into the lap of Millerson, that being Season 3's champion here in the Sunday League. Bruno Carr in 3rd place for a McLaren 1-2-3 start here in Indianapolis. Cas van Velzen on a lightning offensive at the end of quali puts himself 4th and ahead of George Todd, who's now down to 5th. Felix Schwab on a great turnaround in his debut drive this season for Ford in 6th place. Timo de Tosto on debut to the Sunday League, 7th in the 58 Ferrari. James Mason up to 8th for his final run of Indianapolis. Went up and ahead of his teammates and up and ahead of Christian LeBay, who's now down to 9th, and Byron Forrest, who rounds out that top 10. Onto the 6th row here, 11th and 12th, Kyle Jenkins and Ben Cheeseman. Leon Schumacher in 13th. Karl Martel 14th. Sergio Belda 15th. Carl David Bourdreau on debut just outside the top 15 there. Starts on the 8th row in 16th place ahead of Ivan Sanchez and Alex Albert. Thiago Moreira on the 10th row of this field in 19th on debut, alongside Andrew Velkamp in 20th in the 616 Mercedes. This is going to be an incredible round by all strengths, and I cannot wait to see how this one unfolds. Of course, those who have been around for quite some time will remember how things unfolded here in Indianapolis back in Season 1, Round 5. We are praying that history does not find a way of repeating itself, as now we hotly await the start of the formation lap. 30-second warning coming up in a moment's time. We'll be getting on board with the 68 of Melvin Milliston.
30 seconds.
So on board with the man on pole position for the penultimate round of the championship. This won't yet decide the championship unless something absolutely catastrophic happens to both Van Veltzen and Vermaak in round 9 here in Indianapolis. But it is looking very, very hopeful at this time for Melvin Milliston. The 68 will take us away then in a moment's time here in Indianapolis at a truly iconic circuit, of course. One of the holy grounds of motorsport. In fact, the holiest of grounds in American motorsport. Home of the Indianapolis 500. One of the 3 coveted events of the motorsports Triple Crown. The only driver ever to do so, Graham Hill, all the way back in the 1960s, and that was a real fantastic time to be alive in the world of motorsports. Down towards turn 1 then at the start of the formation lap, you can see what a mighty ensemble we have here in Season 3. Down towards turn 1 then goes Melvin Milliston. Right now, it looks like a little bit of connection trouble for the 114 of Ben Cheeseman. Appears to have done his one mandatory pit stop. That can't be correct, so we'll be checking to see what the updates are on that coming up later on in this formation lap. Milliston takes us away then. Let's get a look around the field here in what is going to be a hotly awaited start here at the genesis of American motor racing here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Bruno Carr then reunites with his 2 McLarens up front for a McLaren 1-2-3 start for Carr. He didn't have the greatest of times out in the Red Bull Ring's various conditions over the course of round 8 of the championship, but now the Brazilian seems more fired up than ever to come and have a go at the race lead. He's going to have to navigate 2 of his fellow McLarens there up front, Vermaak and Milliston, 2 serious heavy hitters in this championship. But as a late entry in, Bruno Carr doesn't have any stakes in the championship. This is all for the love of the game for the 380. Further around the field, we can see there was a real kerfuffle for the K1 Esports team. Jenkins and Cheeseman struggling to find their way into the top 10. Ultimately, it was Mason that took it upon himself. The 413 up into 8th for the start of today's race. These two just eyeing up the back of 2 of their fiercest rivals, the Malwar Racing team. They're currently contending with for the lead of the team's championship. In front of them there, Byron Forrest and Christian LeBay, the Season 1 champion in the 119 Aston Martin. At the back of the field then, Andrew Velkamp could stand to gain positions for the race start. As we've seen, it gets very, very nasty down into turn 1 here in Indianapolis, no matter the size of the grid. So he could stand to gain a helping of positions, I should say, on the opening lap. Thiago Moreira then. Not a lot of expectations coming into this drive. This is more, as it seems, a bit of a data collection drive for the 999 Aston Martin. This is the first time in quite some time, as mentioned earlier in the stream, that we've seen the V8 Vantage. So still a lot up in the air as to what to expect out of his performance today. Word, can we just get a look at that there? Trouble out of turn, I think that was turn 14 for, I want to say, Carl David Bourdreau had a spot above there. He's reunited with the rest of his contemporaries on the field. Doesn't appear to have any major damage. So now as we line up 20 cars in all on one of the largest grids we've seen here in the Sunday League, and what a mighty sight it is here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we roll down towards the Brickyard on the start-finish straight here at the Brickyard. What a fantastic circuit we're at here. The oldest track available on ACC, the 2nd oldest track purpose-built in the world after Brooklands in 1907. The home of American motor racing waylays the start of round 9 of the championship here in the Season 3 of the NLRL Sunday League. Without further ado, then down towards the line, we are green and racing an hour ahead of us here in Indianapolis. Will we see history repeat itself? We can see already drivers looking to get side by side, but a great start from the front row. An even better start by Cas Van Veltzen. you can see now eyeing up a move already on our front row. He's got up past Bruno Carr. It's side by side between the pair, and it's contact further down the field for Bruno Carr. The bottom line, though, we can see right now Tyler Vermaak is alongside Melvin Millicent as we head down towards turn 4 and 5. It's calamity down the order. Yellow flags out for the start of this race, but it looks like Tyler Vermaak has taken the lead as we head down towards turn 6 and 7. Incredibly close stuff right now between these three. It's contact between Milliston and Vermaak. They get all manner of out of shape through turn 6. Now into turn 7, it does invite an opportunity out of Cas van Velzen. These are your three championship rivals here for season 3. Down the back straight, Van Velzen on the outside right now for the run down into turn 8. We're back into green flag conditions and down into turn 8. Around the outside goes the Porsche later on the brakes. Will it be a move up to second for Cas van Velzen? Yes, it is. What a start by the 420, the Flying Dutchman then in the 420 Porsche up and ahead of Melvin Milliston. It has been a howler of a start for the championship leader down to 3rd place. It has been a world-class start for Tyler Vermaak, reeling from 2 victories last weekend and a championship this weekend. Could be moving up a few positions in the Sunday League. A desperate lunge on the inside there by Melvin Milliston down into turns 14, 15, 16 and 17. My word. Look at this here, down into turns 15. And just doesn't get the brakes pinned in on time. He's lost quite some ground there heading into the next lap. He's down to 6th place and behind George Todd. Now up the road, you can see Felix Schwab in the top 5. He's really fighting in unfamiliar grounds. They're behind him. Bruno Carr, who's caught up in the incident down at turn 1. It's very nearly contact between George Todd and Melvin Milliston. What has happened here? It is total head loss. We can see also caught up in the mix up the road was the 420 of Cas van Velzen. It's incredible drama here in the opening 2 laps in Indianapolis. The bottom line right now, Tyler Vermaak leads by 2.6 seconds. Christian LeBay, my word, hats off to the 119, up to 2nd. Started towards the back of the top 10 behind James Mason. You can see now he's backing up onto the 25 of George Todd in this maelstrom of steel heading down the back straight here on lap 1. Functionally lap 2. My word. LeBay to 2nd, Schwab to 3rd, Carr to 4th, Milliston down to 5th. Byron Forrest here eyeing up Ben Cheeseman in the 114 in 9th place in front. Up the road, we can see Cas van Velzen, his fellow Porsche, getting all manner of handsy here with the 413 of Mason, and right up in front of him, the 25 of Todd. Down towards turn 15, we know better on the brakes there for the Porsche, but he backs out of it, hoping these two run each other out of ground. Very nearly is the case into turn 16 we go. We're on board with Cas van Velzen in the Porsche number 420. Has been a real sight for sore eyes in this championship. He's saying that he typically brings quite the sensation to the track, and there is no exemptions made here in Indianapolis. He has dropped back quite a way here, but he has not lost any ounce of the fight he had from the race start. He was up into 2nd there, dropped behind on the start of the last lap. Right up to the back end of Mason, down into turn 1. Todd up the road there in 6th place. We're watching functionally on our screens right now that fight for 7th. Behind them there, Cheeseman, Forrest and DeTosto getting relatively close to one another at this time. Forrest and DeTosto could be clashing for 10th place in a moment's time. Leon Schumacher, though, now intercedes the pair of them. Down into turn 6 we go, getting a little bit out of shape. The 413 of James Mason does invite Cas to the outside here at turn 7. Could go through a later apex. He's definitely attempting the shot at doing so. So onto the back straight. It's a drag race between BMW and Porsche. We know the Porsche can go way later on the brakes. We know the BMW is way faster in a straight line. So it's the case here of who yields first. And it appears to be Van Velzen this time around. Can't be a risk that he finds himself taking in the next lap coming. So looking further around the field here because we want to get a look across the field at this time. Felix Schwab in 3rd place. Melvin Milliston now up and ahead of Bruno Carr to 4th. Tyler Vermaak leads. Christian LeBay in 2nd. For Felix Schwab, this has been a real turnaround in the last couple of rounds here, even during his time with BMW. Looking down into Schwab's previous results, we stay on board here with the number 98. Just to quickly pull up the results here, there is a whole list of drivers here. Felix Schwab, 9th in the championship, was on the podium for the first of 2 races at the Red Bull Ring last weekend, finished ultimately both times in the top 5 by the end of that race weekend. Now Schwab finds himself back in his highest available position so far, 3rd place, and not too far away, mind you, from Labay in 2nd. His teammate Leon Schumacher is really under siege here right now. Over the curbs, real trouble for Schumacher in the 65, ultimately forfeits position to Timo de Tosto. He now moves up into 11th. Mason still under siege for that 7th place on track. Cas van Velten and Ben Cheeseman closing in on the 413 BMW. He's quickly losing sight of the car in front of him. George Todd in the 25, now 1.2 seconds up the road as he exits turn 7. Here's Melvin Milliston. He'll be eyeing up Felix Schwab in a moment's time here. We're on board with the 68, the man who started from pole position, now fights for the last of those podium positions, as it's been an absolute howler start for Milliston. The pressure perhaps getting then to the Swedish talent over the course of today's race very, very early on, not even 10 minutes into our round here in Indianapolis, and that was definitely quite a choice start by the championship leader. Now eyeing up, it's contact between himself, I believe there. He did back off. Wasn't expecting Schwab to slow down out of turn 15. Now out of turn 16, he's side by side, but going the long way around here. This is a dangerous game to be playing here in the Brickyard. This is Ford's territory. And we saw Ford won back in Season 1, Round 5. And it's for this reason. There goes the Mustang. Stay in the slipstream all you'd like. Off goes the Mustang. Felix Schwab opens the taps there on Melvin Milliston. Down towards turn 1. The McLaren's right back with him, but that is just absolutely unparalleled getaway by that 7th generation Mustang. What a show so far. We'll cut away from Milliston for the time being. We quickly see here Tyler Vermack leading by nearly 5 seconds to Christian Lebay. This has been a phenomenal start by all strengths and accounts here in Indianapolis. We can see now was what was previously an onlooker to this fight, now a very active competitor involved in that fight for 3rd is Bruno Carr in the 380. Has got front row tickets here to a potential incident in front. We've seen Milliston has already been pushing the envelope out of turn 7 in towards turn 8. Looked for the inside. Oh my word, what was that by Bruno Carr? Well, that's a quick way to get yourself ostracized from a championship. Second, you know what, if I had a pound coin for every time I've seen a car get deliberately rammed, I'd have £2. And that's quite concerning because it shouldn't have even happened once. But that is genuine frustration from the 380, and that is frankly shameful for Bruno Carr. He has now ruined the race of 2 drivers on this track. That's just frankly unacceptable, that. Not the kind of performance we expect to see here in the championship. We did see contact up the road here between Byron Forrest and Ben Cheeseman. Watching from Timo de Tosto's point of view now, the 58 right onto the back end of his teammate at the Malwar Racing Team. Milliston up the road, now drops behind. So Milliston into the pit lane we've seen there as well. Did actually survive the collision, and I am genuinely taken aback as to how he's managed to do that. That was quite the nasty shunt there. That is frankly unacceptable, what we've just seen there out of Bruno Carr. So, nearly 10 minutes into the session, and that's definitely really dropped like a hammer on this crowd right now. Tyler Vermack leads the charge with a fastest lap under his belt so far. Christian Lebay in 2nd. George Todd now up to 3rd. James Mason in 4th. Cas van Velten in 5th. Ben Cheeseman in 6th. Byron Forrest 7th. Timo de Tosto right behind in 8th place. Leon Schumacher up to 9th. And Carl David Bourdroy on debut into the top 10. Andrew Veldkamp in 11th, Sergio Belda in 12th, Ivan Sanchez 13th, Kyle Jenkins, I should say, in 14th. Just goes up and around Sanchez. Or Belda, I should say. No, it was Sanchez. Sanchez now down to 14th, Alex Albert 15th, Felix Schwab 16th, Thiago Moreira in 17th. Now ahead of Carl Martel in 18th. Milliston and Carr into the pits. Yeah, I do agree there with Jason Bush in chat. It is sad to see the driving standards fall like that. I mean, I wouldn't say that's on race control. We can't vet every single driver that makes their way into the championship. We're under the pretenses that, maybe Carr wouldn't have done that. But you can never gauge these things off of people. It is still shocking, nonetheless, that something like that can happen here. But, you know, that's the reality of sim racing. You're going to get a bad apple in every bunch. It's naive to assume otherwise. Side by side then for Timo de Tosto versus Byron Forrest for 7th place. Down into turn 1 we go. The Ferrari up on the inside now. Byron Forrest drops behind but looks for an immediate fight back on his teammate. On debut, mind you, for the NLRL Sunday League. Out into turn 6 we go then. Out through turn 5. That has definitely dropped like a hammer there. Wow, that took a lot of the wind out of my sails. I wasn't expecting to see that. It's like when you see a stunt go wrong and the performer dies. Really does sully the mood there. Timo de Tosto then up to 7th, up and ahead of his teammate. We've just seen him move up the road, or down the road, I should say. For Carl David Bourdreau, he has now dropped behind Sergio Belda. Andrew Velkamp is up the road now in 10th place. Kyle Jenkins right behind them. Ivan Sanchez in a very close skirmish right now for position on track. See if we can catch on board with these four. They are right in the thick of fighting here in Indianapolis. Felix Schwab into the pits as well as one of those drivers caught up in the incident from earlier on. See right now, this is the point of view from Kyle Jenkins in the 113 McLaren. Currently chasing down, that's Carl David Bourdreau who goes wide out through turn 15. That gives a free 11th position then to Jenkins. Now eyeing up Sergio Belda in 10th. Could be that fight coming up very, very soon. Ben Cheeseman looking to hold off both Timo de Tosto and Byron Forrest for 6th place here. So a real turn of fate for the 114. Both of the K1 Esports McLarens were really struggling to get inside of that top 10. They're now actually not too far away from the suggestion of a top 5 finish after what has been a, put nicely, bit of a controversial 13 minutes here in Indianapolis. Seems that where this track goes, trouble follows. So out through turn 5, or turn 4 I should say. Actually, that's turn... we're all over the shop here. Out of turn 7. This being turn 6, the previous 2 corners is where I thought the drivers were for a moment there. That's out of turn 5 right now for Thiago Moreira. On with De Tosto then. Let's stay on board with the Ferrari. Now in that fight for 6th place against Ben Cheeseman. Pair of them heading into Sector 3 with quite a vengeance here. You see, it's already been a bit of an awkward area of the track for a lot of the drivers to work their way around as we're on board with Timo de Tosto on his debut drive here in the Sunday League. Now vies for position with Ben Cheeseman as we head down into turn 15. Out of turn 17, so in the slipstream right now is Timo de Tosto. Could be a drag race between Ferrari and McLaren on their way past the Brickyard. 137.680 to a 137.130 to the benefit of Timo de Tosto. Up the inside on his way down towards turn 1, but who yields onto the brakes first? And I believe it was the 114, but he still finds his way to the inside on exit. Then on his way round turn 2, still alongside and now behind Timo de Tosto. K1 Jupiter in chat asking, did you miss anything? Or did I miss anything when he was away? No, not as of right now. Timo de Tosto got a fantastic move in on Ben Cheeseman. There could yet be some fight back here. This is incredibly close amongst these 3 for the fight of 6th place. De Tosto really getting his hands full on his debut drive in the Sunday League. It's just a pity that the event has now been sullied by the presence of a very controversial incident, to put it bluntly. We are seeing in front right now is an incredibly close fight here between Cas van Veltzen and James Mason for 4th place on the field. Down towards turn 15 and 16 we go then here in Indy. A quarter of an hour into this race and things have dramatically shifted inside of the top 10. We'll report on that in just a moment's time here. We're on board with the number 420 is going out of commission there through turn 16. The number 413 very nearly knocked out of line. on his fight for 4th place. We're with Van Velzen on his way down the opening straight now. It is a drag race between BMW and Porsche. We know BMW to be faster on the straights, Porsche to be better on the brakes. So much like what we saw down at the back straight, we are seeing play out before our very eyes again. A great switchback for Mason to hold his nerve, hold his position on the road. Trouble for Leon Schumacher now into the pit lane as the death toll here in Indianapolis continues to rise. Out through turn 4, now on our way to turn 5. We're still with Cas Van Velzen in that fight for 4th place on the field with James Mason. Down towards turn 6, got very nearly into a front and rear incident between these two on their way out of turn 6, now into turn 7. Let's get a look at the grid at large. Tyler Vermack leads with the fastest lap. Christian LeBay in second. George Todd is reeling in the 119. There could yet be a fight for the front row. James Mason we're currently seeing in front of Cas Van Velzen, 4th and 5th between the pair of them. Timo de Tosto in 6th place, Byron Forrest in 7th. Ben Cheeseman now behind Byron Forrest in 8th place. Back on board with Van Velzen for the time being. Cheeseman in 8th, Jenkins 9th, Veldkamp in 10th, Belder in 11th, Sanchez in 12th. They're incredibly close to one another here. A three-way fight for 10th place. Veldkamp versus Sanchez versus Belder. Let's see, Belder up the inside, so Veldkamp's got a clear view of the 50 as he tries to make his way around at turn 8. Gets up and ahead. Very well done there by Sergio Belder. Clinical performance from the 50 of the Holkianos Motorsports team. Ivan Sanchez's teammate now having dropped behind position to in front of him there. I want to say that is the that I believe to be Felix Schwab there. Now trying to unlap his way around. He is carving through this traffic. He very nearly got himself into contact with Andrew Veldkamp. His teammate now out of this race, the 65 out of round 9, that being Leon Schumacher. The death toll up to 2. I would say a remarkable turn. Bruno said in the server that he lost his brakes. Okay. Do give me a second. do give me a second. Okay, so he's lost his brakes, yeah? He's lost his brakes. Why would he turn left? Why would he turn left if he lost his brakes? You don't take the corner if you lose your brakes. There's a runoff right in front of you. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Sorry, it's usually not my place to get opinionated on these things, but I don't buy that. James Mason now side by side with Cas Van Velzen. The 420 up the inside for 4th place down into turn 8. It looks like a little bit of a knock there between the pair of them as they make their way round turn 8. Now back on board with Van Velzen. He's around the outside into turn 9, now into turn 10. Still side by side between these two in their run into sector 3. The 420 back up the inside then as we enter the banking down towards turns 15, 16 and 17. This is brilliant stuff between Mason and Van Velzen. Two incredibly strong drivers on this grid going head-to-head at the genesis of American motor racing. Who comes out on top in the fight for 4th as back up to 4th goes James Mason. This is cinema we're seeing here in Indianapolis. Make no mistake of it. Incident or otherwise earlier on, you are seeing one of the greatest rounds of racing. My word, into the wall goes James Mason. As we saw there, that looked like desync, I want to say, because you couldn't actually see a bit of contact. So this was in that fight for 4th. Down towards turn 17, there were... I don't know. I don't know. I really hope that it's not real collision. I'm hoping that it's desync because that could have got very, very nasty. The 996 now out of this race. Carl David Boudreau calls it quits on his first race here. We're watching here with Carl Martel on his way up to the side of Andrew Veldkamp. Now up and ahead of Ivan Sanchez. So that has definitely been a bit of a nasty way for that fight to have ended. Just as it was getting good there. That was really great stuff between the pair of them, but one tiny moment of desync by the looks of it. Now, this is us mostly speculating at this time. Up the inside goes Byron Forrest on a very wounded James Mason. But you can try to take the car out of the race. You can't take the race out of the car. Mason, despite all of that nose damage, is still soldiering on a wounded BMW, struggling, striving there to get back up into the top 5. 4.4 seconds between himself and Timo de Tosto. He's got present company of Byron Forrest on his tail. Let's see if we can get on board here. As we see into the pits goes Ben Cheeseman. or out of the pits, I should say. We're still seeing a great fight for the back of the top 10. Veldkamp versus Martel versus Sanchez. They're catching up to Belder in front. I want to try and catch on board here with, if we can catch him just before he makes his move, as into the pits goes James Mason. So that move's already done for Byron Forrest. Up to 6th. Up to 6th there. 20 minutes into the session, and every single which way we aren't paying attention to, something on disastrous, grandiose scale kicks off. Carl Martel up into 10th then. 0.4 of a second up the road from Andrew Veldkamp. Let's see if we can get on board with his teammate. Up the road there we can see Felix Schwab, and Melvin Milliston is back on the field from 16th place. Tyler Vermaak, one of his championship rivals, leads that charge on what could be a hat-trick of victories for the South African. Won twice in the Red Bull Ring. We're watching now with Andrew Veldkamp. He's in a great stead at the moment here in the top 10, just over 20 minutes into round 9 of what has been a very controversial chapter of the NLRL Sunday League. Right now, Vermaak leads, LeBay second, Todd third, Van Veltzen fourth, De Tosto not too far away, actually. So there could be quite an interesting fight coming up here, as we are seeing the emergence of not only Timo De Tosto. You can see following on his trails right now, looking to try and unlap himself, is Ben Cheeseman. We will get back on board, though, with Andrew Veldkamp. Ivan Sanchez now gets up and ahead of him for the Holciano Motorsports team. So it seems every time we cut away from this fight at the back of the top 10, someone gets overtaken. Sanchez now on a much more reinvigorated drive to reunite with his teammate Sergio Belder up the road. Stay on board here with a 91 for just a moment as we analyse the rest of the field. The nearest fight on track at the moment appears to be going on between these two, and we've caught them right at the best time here, down towards turn 1. Cas Van Veltzen versus Timo De Tosto. See, that is what brake fade looks like. That is what brake failure looks like, and that was for Ben Cheeseman in the 114. Take notes. Out through turn 3. And we're checking in with Veldkamp. That fight's not going anywhere at this time. We're on board with Timo De Tosto, now in the top 5. So it's been a great opening drive by the American in the 58 here, racing on home soil in the Ferrari. As now he looks to size up what is a serious heavy hitter, one of the 3 in that championship fight, second in the championship in front of him. That's Cas Van Veltzen in the 420 Porsche. Got involved in that prang between himself and Mason not too long ago. Still yet to figure out precisely if that was desync or if there was a genuine contact there. It looked like either, and I'm not going to try and draw conclusions on that at this time. That seemed a lot less clear-cut than the previous incident to follow it. We're on board with De Tosto, though, as we go heading in towards turns 15, 16, and 17. Bear in mind, we're about 7 minutes away from seeing the emergence of the bulk of our pit lane runs, currently in the pits at the moment. Getting a look on the wider display, the 113 and the 36 of Kyle Jenkins and Alex Albert in the pits at this time. We're still on board with De Tosto, but he's losing sight of Cas Van Veltzen as we round turn 17 on to the opening straight here at Indianapolis. The physical gap between the pair of them as they go barreling down towards turn 1. In the background there we see Byron Forrest into the pit lanes. We'll get on board with him in a moment's time. Taking a look around the field here, we can see things start to close up between Ivan Sanchez and Carl Martel. 1.5 seconds between the Ferrari and the Bentley on their way out of turn 17. Up the road from the pair of them, Sanchez's teammate Sergio Belder in the number 50 on his way down the opening straight. You can see the gap between these 3 at this time. Not too far up the road, the lapped car of Felix Schwab. Not too far behind these drivers as well, the 616 Mercedes of Andrew Veldkamp. Now, discussing the action up in the top 3 at this time, it's been relatively quiet since the race start, as now all of that hostilities are now cleared. George Todd, in the meantime, has surfed the field here to 3rd place and is closing slowly but surely on the end of this first of 2 stints to Christian LeBay up the road there in the 119. Hovering in and around the 2-second mark. We can see LeBay dives for the pit lane, though, so Todd's going to stay out, and it's now going to become a bit of a strategy fight between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari. LeBay into the pit lane he goes then. Brings it down to 50 miles an hour. See, I think it's 50 kilometers an hour, which is definitely bizarre they would show that sign in America. So with LeBay in the pits, it pushes Van Velzen up to the podium positions. It puts De Tosto, who's only 1.1 seconds away, up to 4th. James Mason, despite that incident, is back out on track and moreover in the top 15 despite his damages. Up and ahead of Melvin Milliston, another casualty over the course of this race. Really, that has gone totally wrong for him. And to no fault of his own there, because he just got spearheaded down through turn 8 by Bruno Carr. I mean, I don't necessarily buy the excuse that it's brake failure there. Anyone whose brakes are failing, you'd have steered right. You wouldn't have steered into the corner. Down out of turn 5 then, in towards turn 6 we go. We're on with James Mason, 1.5 seconds from his teammate in the 113, Kyle Jenkins in 13th there. A down and out performance today by K1 Esports. It has not gone particularly well, and for Mason, to no fault of his own, out of turn 17, caught by the backside by Cas Van Velzen in their fantastic clash for 4th place earlier on. Tyler Vermaak still out on track, 16 laps into this race right now, 34 minutes left to go in Indianapolis. Leads the charge by a country mile to George Todd. 15 seconds between the pair. Down into turn 1 he goes. Bit of trouble on the brakes there for the 81. So you see here from Jenkins' point of view, his teammate James Mason slowly closing in on the 113 as we head up the halfway mark of round 9 of the championship. Looking around the field, we can see a fight emerging very shortly by the looks of things between Andrew Veldkamp in the 616 Mercedes and the 999 Aston Martin of new signing Thiago Moreira. So this could be quite exciting here to finally see what Moreira can do when he gets side by side with another driver. He's had a little bit of a quiet race, all things considered. Has definitely been able to keep himself clear a lot of the trouble. If I can really get my words out today, my word. If we can get a closer look here on board, into the pit goes Andrew Veldkamp. So that puts Thiago Moreira in 8th position right now. Sergio Belda and Ivan Sanchez, double stack for the Holcianos team. They're both into the pits for the number 50 and the number 91 Ferrari. Then also into the pits is Timo de Tosto. The pit lane then lively with Ferraris. There's De Tosto now entering the pit lane box behind him. That is Sergio Belda. Then comes Ivan Sanchez. Those two come to a stop as he gets off the jacks and is away here on Gasoline Alley. Rather ironically named these days, considering that the premier cars of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the modern-day IndyCar platform, no longer run on gasoline. They use ethanol. Tyler Vermaak is into the pits, but staying out is George Todd. So that does present itself with a very interesting challenge now ahead for the 25 and the 81. Who's got the better strategy here? It has become a game of chess between Vermaak and Todd. Todd now leads the charge down into turn 1. For Christian LeBay, he is a long way from the podium at this time, but is back out onto the field, up and ahead of his teammate Timo de Tosto, on the hunt for the race lead. Now, strategy, he's gone much earlier than his contemporaries on that podium, Todd or Vermaak for that matter, and could find himself with some great opportunities coming up in the next 31 minutes. As the sun starts to set here in Indianapolis, temperatures are starting to decline on the FIA Grade 1. Looking around the field then, as we've still got a few more drivers into the pits at the moment, we see Cas Van Velzen's now in to his pit box in the 420. Battle scarred there, that Porsche. Alex Albert still out on track, goes up and ahead of Kyle Jenkins to 16th place. Carl Martel now up to 2nd, having yet to have taken his pit stops. We see for Tyler Vermaak, he's on his way out at the moment. The 999 of Thiago Moreira now goes up and ahead of him for 3rd place on the field. But we are waiting to see where does Christian LeBay position himself in all of this, as Vermaak is now out of the pit lane. LeBay just starts his run on to the opening straight, so not too far away between these two at this time. He's actually stuck in behind Thiago Moreira, who moves over to let Vermaak careen on past there through turn 4. At the halfway mark of this race, we've still got a few drivers left to serve that mandatory pit stop. George Todd, Carl Martel and Thiago Moreira among them. Tyler Vermaak, though, has entered this with a vengeance. On his way out of the pits, though, it's been trouble for Cas Van Velzen. So really, the road here to the championship lead has been paved in gold for Tyler Vermaak, because both of his contemporaries on the podium of the championship, being Melvin Milliston and now Cas van Velzen, have found some form of trouble over the course of this race. To Van Velzen, I believe that's speeding in the pit lane that's given him a stop-go 30-second penalty. As we saw earlier on from Milliston, that was to no fault of his own. He got absolutely kamikazed in through turn 8 and is now down out of the top 10 at this time. So Vermaak could see a very healthy shove of points coming into Silverstone. This could be much, much tighter to the end of the championship between these three than previously expected. This is going to make for an incredible season finale next Sunday on October, looking at it here, I want to just make sure, October 5th at the Grand Prix Circuit Silverstone. It is going to be absolute cinema. Make no mistakes of it, ladies and gents. Halfway into this race, then George Todd's in the pits on his way out, but Vermaak retakes the mantle of the race lead here in Indianapolis. He's won twice at the Red Bull Ring, and now the chances seem more likely than ever for Vermaak to take home a win. 3 on the trot, a hat-trick in the latter half of the season for the South African. He's waited a long, long time here, having competed since Season 2 in the Sunday League for a race win to hit his doorstep. He was robbed of the opportunity following a post-race investigation at the Circuit of the Americas last season. And now, not only has 2 under his belt, could be looking for 3 on the trot. So this could be a lot for Vermaak coming into these next 29 minutes of racing. So it's Vermaak from Todd, Lebay and De Tosto for the top 4. Van Velzen with a stop-go 30 to serve could give the top 5 to his fellow Porsche, Byron Forrest, down in 6th at the moment, but not too far away at all. Ben Schiessman in 7th. Carl Martel on his way out of the pits at this time is going to lose out position to James Mason up to 8th. Then following in his wake, the number 68 of Melvin Milliston returns to the top 10. So, at long last there for Milliston, the road to redemption. Now, this is damage control for the 68. He leads the championship, bringing back up the statistics of what things were looking like coming into today's round. Let's get a look at this one right about here. Milliston leads ahead of his contemporaries by 30 points at the nearest, 36 points at the farthest on the podium there between himself, Van Velzen and Vermaak. For Vermaak, he is very easily looking at a suggestion of second place here, as he's only 6 points away from... Actually, looking at it here, am I seeing the maths correctly? Yes, he is only 6 points away from Cas van Velzen. So he'll be up to what is very easily second in the championship. Now, I want to bring up the points, the point scoring system over the course of the next couple of minutes, just to quickly pick apart where the predictions are looking like for Silverstone's championship standings. Now, let's get a look through this here, the scoring system. We're just quickly checking in with our informants over on the SimGrid page for the NLRL Sunday League. Now, just double checking that our information is up to scratch here. Yes, so this is up to date. We can bring you now, as we pull away the championship fight for a moment, to bring you the scoring. First place gets 40 points. Second place gets 35. Third gets 30. Fourth gets 27. Fifth gets 24. Sixth gets 21. Seventh gets 18th. Eighth gets 15. Ninth gets 12 and 10th gets 10 points, and there's 3 points supposedly available for the fastest lap. So at the best of things right now, Tyler Vermaak gains 43 points. Looking at the gap to where things are at the moment, if Milliston finishes in 8th position, 43 points against 15, I believe that is a 28-point margin improvement. Now, I'll just double check because my maths is frankly horrible, and I would not take my word for gospel. I would not even trust myself to run the numbers on this. Minus 15. Yes, so it is actually 28. So I need to give myself a little bit more credit. Pat on the back there for me. 28 points would be the improvement over his current point standing. So for where Vermaak is currently situated, he's 36 points away from the championship lead. That would put him right now at the end of today, if they finish exactly where they are, that would be 8 points. So that is incredibly thin if they finish where they are. For Milliston, he's not too far away from Mason. That'll give him another 3 points to play with. That pushes the gap up to 12 points between the pair of them. The bottom line of it, though, between what is soon to be our new top 2, if they finish as they are in the next 25 minutes, is that the championship can be won and lost before the end of race 1 of 2 next Sunday. That is how fine the margins are. These two will be ripping each other apart for a chance of Season 3 because it looked fairly comfortable coming into today's round. It has been anything but after that incident for Melvin Milliston. This could be an incredibly exciting next 2 weeks here, with today being among them. 25 minutes left to go then. In regards to where Cas van Veltzen positions himself right now, he's down in 15th after his stop-go 30-second penalty. He's functionally out of the chance for staying in position. Right now for 15th place, he only gains a single point. So Van Veltzen's out of that fight for the championship by the looks of it here, and it's been a really bittersweet end. Into the wall. That is a big shunt for him there. And it seems all but over for Cas van Veltzen. He has been a fantastic driver over the course of this season, but that has all come to a very, very harsh end for the Flying Dutchman. He remains at the side of the road. Absolute despair. Wrap your head around that one. That is heart-shattering for Cas van Veltzen. So now it leaves the discussion of only 2 drivers left in that championship fight. Now, I want to bring to the table here that, of course, it's 40 points apiece for both of the races on Sunday, next Sunday, I should say. So that's 80 points up for grabs among these two. Van Veltzen, if he's able to send absolutely everything into the next week, could potentially recover that championship chance. But the chances now are very, very slim. And now out of this race, he's gone from 1 point to 0. He's going to lose at the best of times here. Looking at that championship fight once again coming into today's round, Van Veltzen stood in 2nd place, 6 points ahead of Vermaak, 30 points away from Milliston. Vermaak currently leads this race, of course, 43 points because he's got the fastest lap. That's an extra 3 points on the 40 he'll get for winning if he stays where he is in the next 23 minutes. So that's 43 points over Van Veltzen. So there is still a chance. I would say he cannot functionally lock the championship in on this round alone. You need 80 points, which none of these drivers are hoping to get right now. Even if the other two dropped away entirely and Milliston somehow managed to open the gap by 43, he would still be 7 away from securing the championship. In fact, I would say that the margin's even higher than that. We know that's not going to happen right now. So the bottom line, after all of this incoherent jargon and numbers and data, is that Tyler Vermaak is going to jump up to 2nd, and he could, at a push here, be looking to be only 8 points away from Melvin Milliston if he finishes in 8th. That'll be 12 points if he finishes ahead of James Mason in 7th. Vermaak now needs to finish where he is with that fastest lap for the most effect in this round. That would put him in the best possible position to fight for the championship come Silverstone next Sunday. And I said it at the start of this season. I said this is the most invigorated performance we've seen. This is the most ready he's been for a championship. We'll cut back to him in a moment's time here. It's the Battle of Britain here between Aston Martin and Bentley. Thiago Moreira versus Alex Albert down in towards turn 8. We'll stay on board with these two here. We'll stay on board with Albert as the attacking car of 2 in one of 3 entered Bentleys this season. Currently in that fight for 12th place. We're on with Alex Albert. I want to continue on that conversation about Vermaak. I said it at the start of this season. This is the most confident we've seen him in a long, long time. And the proceedings of this season are eyeing him up. The stars aligning, as it were, to put him in the chance of a championship here in Season 3. It's come better late than never. Where it stands right now, he'll still be behind Milliston, so he will have to give it absolutely 110% come Silverstone if he wants the championship secured. So this sets a remarkably high set of stakes here for the next coming round. We're on board with Alex Albert. We're going to cut away in a moment's time because we are being made aware of a very close fight right now between Melvin Milliston and James Mason for control of 7th position. Now, this can massively impact Vermaak's chances to fight for the Season 3 championship going into Silverstone, as that could push the gap from, as mentioned before, 8 up to 12 by our calculations. Every point counts in this factor now. We're still watching with Alex Albert. We're going to quickly cut away now as he runs wide out of turn 6, sullying his chances for 12th at this time. We're on board with Melvin Milliston now for the fight of 7th place. Milliston got absolutely, and for a lack of a better word, clattered through turn 8 after what was supposedly, quote, brake failure by the 380 of Bruno Carr. Take of that what you will. If you saw the incident, you'll understand why we're approaching this with such an air of skepticism. Milliston then, in pursuit of Mason, number 68, vying for damage control here with 20 minutes to spare at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway down towards turn 1. That's what brake failure looks like. He tried to squeeze himself to that left-hand wall. He just did not want to make any kind of collision with Mason. Down out of turn 3, now to turn 4, out of turn 5, on our way to turn 6. Milliston runs wide in very similar fashion to what we saw out of the Bentley of Alex Albert. I believe we've just had a disconnect up the order there as well, because this fight's not been affected, but behind them, things have gone a little bit shorter there. Now out 6 drivers from the race start. It has been brutal here in Indianapolis. We do see around there, Belder now passed by Martel. We were watching with his teammate Alex Albert not long ago in his fight against Thiago Moreira in the Aston Martin. That is still going on at this time, so we're going to try and keep an eye on all 3 of these fights as they continue to unfold. Milliston right now chasing James Mason for position, the closest fight up the field here for the highest position. It has now actually been promoted, so no, it was up front of these two because it has gone from 7th to 6th. That's only just crossed my desk there. Who disconnected up front? And how is this going to impact the rest of today? I believe it was the 25. So that is absolutely unheard of. That was George Todd out of the race today. Milliston up the inside on Mason. That is very, very risky there. You can tell this is a very frustrated drive by Milliston now. Very rare is that his composure is shaken to this extent, but that was desperate. He wants that position now. He knows 7th place is already grand. He'll be 12 points ahead if he finishes where he is right now, but 6th place. Now, we haven't crunched the numbers on that because we didn't expect to get this far. 18.5 minutes left to go. These two are in a world of their own towards the back of the top 10. Bringing back up the scoring system, if he finishes in 6th place against the 43-point tow from Tyler Vermack, it puts him, I believe, 18 points ahead at this time. I'll run the numbers on that. 43... take 22, not 18. Miscounted by 4 there. So that would put him 22 points still in the lead if he finishes there. I think I was calculating for, I want to say 4th or something like that. I'm not really sure. I pulled the numbers out from there. Is it at all obvious didn't get the best grades in maths? Down towards turns 15, 16 and 17 then, with 17.5 minutes left to go here in Indianapolis. It has been a real head turner over the course of round 9. Now on the exit of turn 17, down the opening straight, past the Brickyard we go. On that start-finish line, Melvin Milliston still putting the pressure on to James Mason, but he has been unshakable since his reintroduction to the track with heavy nose damage from that incident earlier on between himself and Cas Van Veltzen. Van Veltzen now out of this race and part of the growing death toll, now up to 6 cars here in round 9. Mason yet still remains and is up in 6th place. Milliston has definitely got a thing or two to say about that. Still vying for a top 6 here. I think the chances with this much time left in it is all but run up for the chances of a top 5 right now. Cheeseman just an extra corner up the road from these two as they come down into turn 6. James Mason in a bit of trouble there. A bit of a snap halfway into turn 6. Now out through turn 7. He's more vulnerable than ever to the advances here from Melvin Milliston. Meanwhile, there is still that fight going on down the order now between Thiago Moreira and Andrew Veldkamp. The 36 of Alex Albert now up the road. Milliston looking for the inside, down at turn 8, and he just runs all the way over there. This is incredibly risky now from the 68. He's thrown caution to the wind, and it is not looking grand for him at this time. I was saying but a moment ago, do bear with me just a moment here, folks. You now look around the field away and back on with Carl Martel. So yeah, the sun is setting. I thought the sun was rising. I was like, my word, it's not already been nighttime, has it? Surely. Losing my mind here towards the end of this championship. And with a round like this, who couldn't go stir crazy in my position? I can only imagine then what the head loss is looking like for some of the drivers today. Ben Cheeseman in the top 5. He's not going to be scoffing at a result like that anytime soon. James Mason not too far away from him there, just about 7 seconds between the two K1 Esports cars. It has been a real turnaround for K1 Esports. We see here trouble for Andrew Veldkamp. Very nearly crosses into the path of our new podium sitter. And on debut to the Sunday League, Timo de Tosto in the 58. This was Malwar's ace in the hole here, with LeBay in second. De Tosto now makes a 2-3-4 finish for Malwar, as Byron Forrest is in 4th place. For the K1 Esports team, they're losing ground in that team's championship. It could fall apart by the end of the first race at Silverstone. There's still much yet to be decided on that front. It has been a great hustle from the Malwar Racing team on their first championship as a collective here in the NLRL Sunday League, and it has been really all hands on deck here in Indianapolis. They've surfed a lot of the madness to put themselves where they are, and they took the baton and they ran with it. 2, 3 and 4 right now. Vermax up the road, competing now as an independent. And now I don't want to go and confirm these straightaways. We see they're going up and around on the number, I want to say that's the number 50 there. Sergio Belda had a bit of trouble down at turn 6. I don't want to confirm this straight away, but I'm pretty certain the more recent news from Vermac. Now, last round, I believe we reported that he had joined Lamaxo Esports, and that seems to have changed its tune now, as he finds himself seemingly now in cohorts with Velocity. Now, we can't confirm that at this time. We've been inaccurate with these things before. We felt pretty cocksure that he has gone to a team before, only to be told the opposite of that information. But by the looks of it, he has now moved over to Velocity. Now, we don't know precisely what's happened to Lamaxo Esports, or if anything happened between Vermac and Lamaxo Esports. We're going to ask him for any information on that, hopefully by the end of today's race, to maybe get an insight as to what's going on around the world of motorsports here in sim racing. As to what precisely has gone on with that team. Nonetheless, he still leads that charge with the fastest lap. He's just having to do the most here with what he's got. In terms of back into the discussion for the team's championship right now, the furthest up the order for the K1 Esports team in control of their points yield, 5th and 6th between Cheeseman and Mason. Down towards turn 8 he goes then. Nearest fight on track, getting a look around here, was towards the back of that top 10, or just outside of it. But Thiago Moreira finds himself very lonely now, away from Alex Albert. The two now 1.6 seconds apart. You can see the gap doesn't look that far away from the long exposure cameras down towards turn 1, but it is relatively open-ended between Albert and Moreira. The two British machines there in 11th and 12th, the Bentley Continental and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Behind them, Andrew Veldkamp down towards turn 1. Physically behind them at this time, though, the 58 of Timo de Tosto and the Ferrari 296. We've just got a word in as well from, as a matter of fact, it's from Van Veltzen. So it's good always to have word from the drivers after a rough race today. And he said, I did not feel a contact with Mason. Also had no contact warning, but if it was a hit, I feel extremely sorry for Mason. So that does confirm our suspicions that there was desync involved. Now, to how far that goes precisely, we don't know. The onboard systems and all of the penalty systems in ACC seem to verify the fact that there wasn't, in fact, contact between the pair of them. So that goes further in on the theory that there was never really a contact to begin with, and it's been desync that's caused that incident. Nonetheless, it did spoil what was otherwise a fantastic round. These two were really pushing each other well above and beyond what we thought was possible for the pair of them. Mason now remains as the only part of that two-car fight left on the field here, as he's now without the 420 of Van Veltzen. Those two, though, I must say, that has been one of the greatest, but albeit short fights of the season so far. If they can bring that kind of intensity with them to Silverstone, oh my word, you're going to have to start shooting these in IMAX, because this is absolute cinema. Make absolutely no mistake of it. I am thoroughly looking forward to seeing how things unfold in Silverstone next Sunday, as this is going to be one hell of a finale. Right now we're on with Mason. Millicent in hot pursuit, though, just under 0.3 of a second at the last interval. They make their way down towards turn 15, 16 and 17. Now, one can wonder here, has Millicent tapered his expectations for what that McLaren is capable of? Let's get on board with the pair of them here. We also see a pretty close fight for not necessarily position, but just area of the track as far as it is unlapped by Kyle Jenkins. Down towards that start-finish line then to start lap 29. 10 minutes left to go. James Mason still defending for 6th place. Let's stay on board then, this time with the BMW of Mason as the defending point of view against a rampaging 68 McLaren of Melvin Milliston, vying for damage control. As it stands where he is right now, he'll stay in the lead of the championship by only a handful of points, though. Where he's at right now, he'll be looking at about, I want to say 12 points. And then in our last couple of calculations, he could open that up by a factor of another 10, getting himself up to 22 points in the lead of the championship over Vermac. So this could be absolutely everything for him. That has really been the defining factor behind why his drive has been so feral compared to where it's been over the course of the last couple of rounds. This is a lot on the table here for Milliston. It can give him the most advantage that he needs coming down towards Silverstone. Around the outside at turn 8 on James Mason. Mason now holds around the outside on his way to turn 9. It's a bit of a bump between the pair of them, but this is a very tricky section of the track here, so neither of these two want to yield for position. I'm not necessarily sure if you can pitch blame on that one there. You can definitely for that one, though, on the exit of turn 14. That is not looking grand. That is really not looking grand here. I think some of the people in chat did predict that was going to happen. You just knew that was going to happen. That was going to happen. Mason down towards turn 16. That is now down to 7th place. Lost out on that fight for 6th. There's going to be choice words by plenty of drivers over Melvin Milliston today. But we are seeing total survival mode by the 68 at this point. This has been the worst case scenario for the Swedish talent over the course of the season. He had a very comfortable lead of the championship coming into today. It has gone by the wayside. He is doing the best now under very, very lopsided circumstances to keep himself in the championship fight. Right now he's doing enough, but he's trying absolutely everything, but it is really, really coming at quite a cost to his own image on this circuit, because he has just been shoulder check after shoulder check after shoulder check. Moving like college football, this guy here. You see around the field, Alex Albert very close to his teammate Timo De Tosto. And I must say, definitely a driver of the day vote in my books for De Tosto. Same story for LeBay as being that far up the field. Considering where they started towards the back of the top 10, they have really turned that one around, and I think that might be the requiem knell on the team's championship. Now, we won't have confirmation by the end of today, so coming into Silverstone, we'll be able to give you more concrete evidence as to who's come out on top in the team's championship. I think right now, it's just close enough to where things will still be decided at Silverstone on October 5th, so do bear with us on that. 8 minutes left to go then. Let's get one final look at the field before the end of today's very, very controversial round. It seems that Indianapolis can never seem to catch a break here in NLRL, this day being no different. Tyler Vermac then leads with the fastest lap. He's not put a foot wrong today to put himself where he is, and is looking for a hat-trick of victories, but with 7.5 minutes to the line, he's still got one last call to make. Christian LeBay in second, then in the 119, Timo De Tosto on his debut drive in the Sunday League is on the podium, so a great takeaway today for the 58 Ferrari. Byron Forrest on a great result as well, the 824 up to 4th place and ahead of Ben Cheeseman. Melvin Milliston in 6th place and ahead of James Mason in 7th. Carl Martel in 8th. Sergio Belda 9th. And Ivan Sanchez in 10th. The two Holcianos cars there at the back of the top 10 are the closest fight on track right now. Unlikely to be anything too intense, as these two still have a lot to pull towards the end of the championship. Currently 3rd in the teams. Alex Albert in 11th, and Thiago Moreira on debuts up to 12th. He's survived a lot of the chaos Indianapolis has thrown in his direction. The Uruguayan driver in the 999 looks to take home a top 15 finish on debut to the Sunday League. Andrew Veldkamp in 13th and Kyle Jenkins in 14th. Smoke up the road there, or more namely dust, and that was from, looking at it there, Thiago Moreira in the number 999. So looking around to where that closest fight was from earlier on. Now, that was between the two Holkianos cars. Now, we said before, and we'll continue to stress that point, I highly doubt that these two are going to be going anywhere near the level of intensity we saw out of Mason v Milliston earlier on, or even some of the other fights therein. With 6 minutes left to go, these two just looking for solid points right now, both of them in the top 10. Belder and Sanchez have hovered around the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. They're third in the teams. They're doing exactly what they need to right now, given the set of circumstances that they faced at the start of today's race. These two have pulled through for a great double points finish. They're now starting to separate, though, so that fight, even if it was going to happen, doesn't really look likely at this time. 1.6 seconds between the two Ferraris. Let's get a gander around the field, as we do see trouble this time for the 999. Thiago Moreira in trouble on the exit of turn 7. He's back going now. The 999 doesn't appear to have anything in the range of severe damage. He's down in 12th and not too far away from Andrew Veldkamp. So this could open up a fight here for 12th place between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes AMG. We see here backing up onto the two Ferraris we were watching earlier on, as the car in second place looking to lap the twin Holkianos Ferraris, that being Christian Lebay in second on his joint best result in his Sunday League career. The highest he's ever finished over the course of 3 seasons, second place. He's been tantalizingly close to a race win on a handful of occasions, this time just not the day for the Aston Martin, but that does not discredit the absolutely Herculean efforts undertaken, I should say, by the 119 and the Canadian talent, the champion of Season 1, mind you, as well. Lebay could actually find himself back into the top 3 by the end of this round. Bear in mind, he wasn't considered in the data, as we showed to the bottom right-hand side earlier on, because looking on the overall results from so far in this race, Lebay finds himself in 4th with 187 points coming into this. So if we quickly crunch the numbers on exactly how far away he was from Tyler Vermaak, who now currently leads this race and is likely to go up into 2nd in the championship after today. So that is... Right now, as we see, the two Holkianos cars did actually, as a matter of fact, get side by side. Belder now from Sanchez. 0.5 of a second between the 50 and the 91. We'll stay on board with these two as we quickly run a few numbers here. So crunching the numbers, it was a 51-point gap. Now, admittedly, not enough for him to take position, but it is enough for him to be considered in the assessment of today. Bear in mind, that's 2 races coming up on next Sunday. That's a double sprint race. So the amount of available points goes up from 43 at the maximum, being a race win and the fastest lap. Currently, what we're seeing out of Tyler Vermaak, it goes up from 43 to 86. As if you can do it 2 on the trot, it is a very, very healthy dose of points under one's belt out of a double sprint round. And since that's going to be the deciding factor for this championship, there's still a lot riding on the line. You could definitely consider plenty more drivers, as a matter of fact, than what we've just discussed now in the argument of that championship. But the circumstances are most likely to give us one of 2 outcomes, that being Milliston or, at this time, Vermaak. The 413 of Mason in trouble on the exit of turn 14. Now to turns 15, 16 and 17. You can see he's lapped there by Tyler Vermaak. Is that damage for Mason, though? We're really going to be wondering that. That's our next question on our minds at this time. Let's see if we can catch on board with James Mason. He's been a real trooper over the course of this race. He's been down and out. He's been up in the thick of it. And now with just around 2.5 minutes left to go, he's in 7th place, not too far away at this time from Karl Martel. So his priorities now is just to survive today's run at Indianapolis. For Melvin Milliston, it's 4.5 seconds between himself and Ben Cheeseman. Now, I don't want to suggest that it's impossible for Cheeseman to be caught by Milliston. We've definitely seen the ferocity in his drive over the couple last laps just gone. But 4.3 seconds in what is effectively going to be one more lap coming. It is a bit of a tall order. He's going to be praying for problems up the road for the 114. Right now, up the road from the 114 are 2 of the back-marking cars there. Andrew Veldkamp versus Thiago Moreira could be the next fight all the way to the checkered flag here in Indianapolis, with only 1.5 minutes left to go. So a lot of these drivers making their way on to their final laps here on this fantastic stretch of FIA Grade 1. Watching with Veldkamp now as he eyes up Moreira for 12th place. Let's stay on board with the AMG. Veldkamp made his debut to the championship not actually too long ago. So these two still quite new to this field. Towards the back of it at the moment. Could be duking it out for 12th place come the next lap on this track here. They'll have, I believe, one more flying lap, as it does depend on what the 81 clears to the line. And with a minute left to go, Tyler Vermack isn't going to be far enough up the roads to where he can pump the brakes and spend a whole minute getting down through sector 3. He'll be caught up by the 119 if he tries for it, so that'll be one more lap out of Tyler Vermack. We're watching with Andrew Veldkamp. There's a little bit of trouble up the road for Thiago Moreira, but doesn't give him the opportunity he needs to take 12th position off of the Uruguayan in the Aston Martin. Running out wide though through turn 3 into turn 4 and 5. This could be quite tasty here for Andrew Veldkamp. Now 0.6 of a second from Thiago Moreira. We're on to that final lap, so we'll catch on board with Tyler Vermack in a moment's time here. We're on board with Veldkamp in that fight for 12th place. Right behind him, by the way, is Ben Cheeseman, who is starting to sweat bullets as running out wide. These two run into contact. We couldn't actually see what happened in front, but both of them spin around. We can't see here from Andrew Veldkamp's point of view. We were looking behind him, but if I had to gauge what just happened there, I think there was trouble for Moreira, and it caught Veldkamp on the exit of turn 7. See here, Belder from Sanchez, so not much has changed in the last couple of laps there after their move. We do want to catch on board, though, with what is going on here for Milliston v. Cheeseman. It is 0.7 of a second. These two will have one more lap here in Indianapolis to decide whether or not Milliston gets a top 5. Now, the margins for him still keep him in the championship fight come Silverstone next Sunday, but it's going to slim down quite a bit, enough to put Tyler Vermack in the chances for Season 3's championship. We'll be catching on board with Vermack in a moment's time as we see starting their final run, Milliston v. Cheeseman, a fight for the last of those top 5 positions. We'll catch on board with them in a moment's time here as we catch back on board with Tyler Vermack, who has led the lonely drive here in Indianapolis amongst the chaos, amongst the controversy. He emerges now, not 1, not 2, but 3 race wins in a row here in the Sunday League. Better late than never for more glory for Tyler Vermack. Across the line, wins in Indianapolis. So what a performance there. 3 on the trot for the 81. He's waited long and he's waited hard for this one, and it finally comes to him at the end of Season 3 here. Only one more set of races left to go before we round out what has been a fantastic championship. To the line then comes Christian Lebay for his joint best result of his Sunday League career. Second place for the Aston Martin. An all-British front row, McLaren and Aston Martin joining them on the podium, though. On debut, an easy pick for driver of the day, Timo de Tosto in 3rd place with Ferrari. Byron Forrest on a monolith drive for Porsche in 4th place. Looking for him at this time, his best result this season was 3rd. He got that at round 3 in Zandvoort, but this is still going to be a great result to take home. Down to the line he goes for 4th place. Now, I want to catch on board here with Cheeseman and Milliston. We've caught them right in the midst of this fight here. The 68 trying absolutely everything for 5th place. Can Ben Cheeseman hold off the advance? The indomitable stride so far of what has been a bloodthirsty 68 of Melvin Milliston. He runs out wide for turn 17, gives himself the momentum. It's a drag race to the line, but coming out on top for the battle of the top 5, Ben Cheeseman in the 114, up and ahead of Melvin Milliston, who turns this result around from where he is at the back of the field after that monstrous contact, takes home 6th. To the line, Andrew Veldkamp ahead of Thiago Moreira. That's your final result for today. Tyler Vermack wins 3rd on the trot here in the Sunday League, now winning in Indianapolis. Christian Lebay in 2nd. That's redemption for how things turn out for him over the course of the last outing here at Indianapolis in Season 1, Round 5. Timo de Tosto on debut to the podium. Byron Forrest 4th. Ben Cheeseman 5th. Melvin Milliston 6th. James Mason 7th. Carl Markle 8th. Ivan Sanchez 9th. Sergio Belda in 10th. So those two swapped positions. It was 3 temps to the line amongst the pair of the Holkianos Motorsports cars. What a result we've seen today then. That was really quite something, folks. Another win for Tyler Vermack. He's got to be elated now by the successes in the latter half of the championship. It brings his current win tally up to 3. Stays in joint 4th overall. We'll bring that chart up in a moment's time here just to give you a look as to where things are after today's round at Indianapolis. Here's your overall race winners. Tyler Vermack remains in 4th place overall. Jason Bush and Wesley Kuiper still remain joint 2nd. Melvin Milliston currently staves that tide at 7 race wins. Not one more at this time, but with 2 more races left to play for at Silverstone next Sunday. That could since change. Axel Cassier then looking at it here, joint 5th with the rest of the field of Cas van Veltzen, Alexander Rosnov, Ian Skeen, Diman Ivanov, Martijn van Manen, Hayden Puttock and Louis Baptiste for race wins in the Sunday League. That is all from us here. That is a lot to take home. I would definitely say that. There's going to be some words in the paddock. Unfortunately, I don't have to relay what those words are because I would get my account taken down. That's all from us here on TRTN. What a drive we have seen then on quite a few separate accounts here. That was a great race indeed, albeit definitely got a little bit bloodied over the course of that midway. But it was something. It was certainly something. For our next event, now let me just consult my calendar. Now, I believe the next event coming up is for the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. We'll be coming to you for the next round of that championship. It's fantastic. We're going to be continuing to work with them over the course of the winter and coming into 2026. We made that announcement yesterday on a stream that is now no longer available for viewing, but we'll make that announcement again. We are continuing our work with the Competizione Performance League into the future. More to follow on that then. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.